All right, guys, we are running quite a bit later than I had hoped to for today. Today we're going to be doing the injectors. Yesterday we did the CP3, had some stuff to wrap up the afternoon, so I didn't really start on the injector. So we are starting fresh with the injectors today. And like I said, I'm running a little bit behind. I don't like doing this fuel stuff in half days just because I don't like leaving stuff open, especially overnight with like maybe some moisture buildup and stuff like that. So I need to get them out, get the new ones in, get everything sealed up to a point where even if I need to like wrap up little things, at least everything fuel wise is connected. So the next point I just want to touch on briefly, Ryan's video a couple videos ago, you know, I feel like people might be under the impression that like just because I work on and everything that I show in my videos is all Dodge and Cummins related, that I don't like Ford Power Strokes or, you know, Chevy or GM Duramax platforms, which is really untrue. Just because this is what you see on my channel doesn't mean I hate all those stuff. I actually like pretty much all the platforms with the exceptions of a few different motors, but I don't hate one brand or the other or anything like that. You'll actually be seeing some Ford stuff, some Duramax stuff on the channel eventually, because I do have a couple buddies who drive, you know, 6.7 Power Strokes and some GM, like I said, Duramax stuff as well. So you will be seeing a little bit of that here and there, but as far as me personally, I don't have a problem with anybody or any platform of any kind. Whew. Long-winded, I know. But anyway, let's hop into these injectors. I'm assuming most of you guys know how to, say, take your intake horn off and stuff like that, so I'm really not going to try and go into too much detail. I don't want to make this video a two-part series or 20 minutes long either. So I'm going to probably just try and touch on the important stuff and tips that I have that might help you if you're doing a set of injectors yourself. Unfortunately, my lovely assistant Jesse is not here to aid in my assistance again, so my buddy Topside Creeper here is going to be helping me. Not that you really need an extra set of hands. As far as getting up and down the ladder with tools and stuff, I try and set my tool cart right up here, but it's just easier if somebody's there to help you handing stuff, especially when you get towards the motor and the intake and rocker assembly stuff. So obviously, one of the first couple steps is we're going to be removing the intake horn, some of this bracketry in the back here. We're going to remove all the electrical connections, stuff like that. I like to do that stuff and try and get all this stuff out of the way before I start messing inside here, just that, you know, it's less chance that things are going to get dirty. All right, things to mention. Intake horn gasket, I completely forgot to get one before this, and that was one of the things that I was afraid that I was not going to be able to finish, but luckily, usually you're not this lucky, this one is completely intact and is in good shape, so I'm good with that. But if you're doing this, make sure you pick up one of these before you start if you're trying to get this done in one day, because a lot of times they rip apart into multiple pieces. Alright guys, quick update. You can see we have everything pretty much off, the whole fuel rail, all the fuel lines, everything's been disconnected. Everything away from basically the main valve cover, engine, everything inside there. So we're going to start taking that apart. Both valve covers here, the rocker box, and then everything else to get inside the injectors. I'll try and show you guys a little bit going forward. It's just a little difficult with you know, your hands all full of crap and touching this camera. You can see in the garage here, I usually set up a table with some clean towels and everything to lay everything out, especially now that we get towards the motor stuff. I'm gonna basically be running back and forth, putting everything in here. All right, guys, hopefully you can see that. So now the next step is to take off the exhaust rockers. You don't need to take the intake ones off to get the injectors out. It's just the exhaust ones. So take the exhaust rockers off of cylinders 1 through 6, and then pretty much you're ready to undo the connector tubes and get ready to pull the injectors. All right, guys, just a couple helpful tips. First one being, obviously, when you take off the exhaust rocker arms, you want to keep them in order. That's very important. Obviously, your valve lash hinges on the exact rocker going back on the exact same place, because the adjustment might be different for each and every one of them. So second tip you can see here is on the rocker, the plastic ring that holds in this metal, that plastic ring sometimes become brittle and break off. Now, if that happens, this right here, what I'm touching, will become disconnected. So you definitely want to make sure when you're taking off each individual one that you can see that every single one has that on it, because those are very easy to lose. So the easiest way that I've found is to put your rocker cover, and you can see where you have to grind out. If you have head studs, you know that that's number 6. Usually I never number them. I just try and put them back in the exact same spot in the rocker box. So when you pull the old injectors out, you can see each one has a copper washer on it. Your old injectors, when you're pulling them out, you want to make sure that the old copper washers come out with them. Otherwise, you'll be double stacking them when you put the new ones in. So the new ones have the copper washers already on them, ready to go. I lubed up the O-rings, moved over the bases or whatever you want to call them. So we're going to put these in and put the connecting tubes in. There's about 4 torque sequences that you have to do. You have to seat the connecting tubes, and go back and forth a little bit. So I think it's about 4 times. Cleanliness at this point cannot be stressed enough. Obviously, you want it to be clean up until this point, but especially with the new parts, you want to make sure that your hands are always clean, things like that. So make sure everything is clean that you touch, clean that's going back in. If the injector lines or rail is a little bit crusty, make sure you have all of that stuff cleaned out before you put it back in. Also, big thing that I forgot to mention, obviously you can see the connecting tube hole that lets the fuel in is on this side. That's what it looks like. Obviously you want to make sure when you put the injectors in that this is facing towards the right side where the connecting tube is going to be coming in. Should sit down in there, give it a little push, hear it snap like that, good to go. Also on the connecting tube, you can see, if I can get it to focus. All right, there we go. You can see there's a little groove on that. That only sits in one way, so make sure you got the O-ring lubed up and you feel this keyway slide into that of the head. There you go, see, pushed in a little bit. Push that in like that. We're going to do that for the rest of the 6. Rest of the 5, I mean. Whatever. Okay, so next step is cleaning up the connecting tube nuts right here, making sure those are nice and clean, ready to go in. Grab the torque specs and start torquing. And after that, we can start reassembly, basically in the same order that it all came apart. Putting the rocker bridges and the exhaust rockers back on. Torque that down to spec, which has a torque spec as well. Alright guys, I am gonna have to apologize. My SD card ran out of space. I don't even know what the last clip was, but we're gonna fast forward to where I'm at now. So as you can see, we are pretty much almost like 99% back together. I'm not gonna fire it up tonight. It's getting very dark. It doesn't really look like it on camera, but I can't even really see back there without a light. And when I fire this up, I really want to make sure I'm checking for fuel leaks and stuff like that. So like I mentioned before, I usually never try and do this stuff when I'm in a rush, so that way I can make sure when I'm done it's 100%. So pretty much all done. Like I mentioned, I apologize that there's probably a little lapse of progress in there. And I know this really wasn't like a detailed step-by-step instructional video, but online on the forums, if you need more of like a step-by-step with every single little detail in it, I would suggest maybe going online, Googling, you know, injectors, you know, DIY, and I'm sure you can find something that you can print out top to bottom. So this was really just my recap and maybe some helpful hints and tips in there, so hopefully it helped maybe one or two of you guys out, I'm not sure. Anyway, thank you for watching, I appreciate it as always. The garage is a complete disaster. Only managed to cut my finger off once, which is a plus because usually I end up cutting myself quite a bit. Upcoming during the work week, we will get this garage situated, probably try and wrap up the front of the 05, so still plenty of stuff coming, the list never ends, so I keep having to go outside because the light's so much better in here. The light is crap in there, so I'm gonna go inside. I got oil all over my camera. Thank you. I'll see you on the next one.